Hey guys, welcome back. It's Missy. Today we're going to dive into emotionally immature parents and how it has affected you and how you can heal from it. Also, if you struggle with anxiety, don't forget to check out my book, Anxiety at the Root. I go into somatic practices. We talk about how anxiety affects the body and the mind and how to join it together so you can actually heal and you no longer are suffering with chronic anxiety. Let's get into today's video. So let's talk about first, what is an emotionally immature parent? An emotionally immature parent is someone who struggles with emotional regulation, meaning they may have had outbursts, they may have not been able to show you how to deal with your emotions, they may have shamed you for your emotions, they may have been triggered and they didn't handle it in a good way, they may have struggled with being able to apologize and admit their faults, they really struggled with their emotions, sadness, their negativity, and their anger. They may have avoided vulnerability or discomfort. They may have avoided deep conversations. Anytime something got uncomfortable, they would dip out. It was really hard to get vulnerable with them and have heart-to-hearts with them. They may have focused on their own image and their own needs. They may have pushed the narrative what they wanted things to be like, and they didn't really hear your own input. And they couldn't handle the emotional needs of you as a child, and they couldn't handle emotional intimacy in general. They may have had a hard time even saying I love you. They may have had a hard time being physical with you, like hugs, kisses, telling you good things about you. They struggled with getting out of that vulnerability of revealing their true emotions to you. They may have even hid their own emotions and they didn't reveal what was going on, and that's because they avoided their own emotions. So because they were avoiding what was going on, they didn't reveal to you what was going on, and they always maybe have pretended that everything was fine when it wasn't, when you could physically see they were not okay. The difference between an emotionally immature parent and an emotionally abusive parent is an emotionally immature parent is not intentionally trying to cause harm. They have emotional unavailability, unpredictability, or just overall are self-centered. With emotionally abusive parents, oftentimes their wounds, they are trying to intentionally hurt others because of how deeply they are hurt. There's more control and manipulation when it comes to emotionally abusive parents versus emotionally immature parents. It's not necessarily that they want to control things. They may, but it's not always the root cause. It really solely has to do with unhealed wounds where they maybe were shamed for being vulnerable, or they were taught that vulnerability was a weakness, so then they are not able to be vulnerable. Or maybe they had to grow up too fast and they didn't really get to learn how to have emotions and deal with emotions. And they most likely have had parents that didn't teach them how to be emotionally vulnerable and have emotional regulation. So some traits of an emotionally immature parent is they may have made everything about them, same way a child does, where they can't think outside of themselves. An emotionally immature parent is stunted at that same age. What this may look like is you may have shared a feeling, they got defensive, or they got upset, or they may have turned it into their story and they didn't hear you. So anytime you tried to open up to them, maybe share something about yourself, or you were seeking parental guidance, they instead made it about them or made it about their own problems. They started complaining about themselves. They may have dismissed you. They may have said, hey, you know, you're so lucky, you don't really have to deal with anything. I have all of this going on. Or if you tried to bring up something that they were doing wrong, they're like, oh, I just can't be a perfect parent, can I? The next is they couldn't handle your emotions. So this may look like where if you were sad, you were too sensitive. Angry, don't talk back. You're being disrespectful. They generally would shut you down instead of supporting you. You never really felt heard. You may have been shamed for having emotions. You may have been sent to your room when you had emotions. You may have been screamed at when you had emotions. You may have been taught that it's wrong or looked down upon to express yourself from your parent. And this is not because emotions are wrong, because they're not. Our parents are supposed to teach us how to regulate our emotions. It's more so that they can't handle their own emotions, and when you can't handle your own emotions, you can't handle other people's emotions. So you do the same thing to yourself that you'll do the same thing to others that you do to yourself when it comes to emotions, when you don't regulate your emotions or you didn't learn how to regulate your emotions. And if you are someone that struggles with regulating your emotions, I highly recommend you check out my workbook, which I will leave right here. And it's 60 days worth of learning how to regulate your emotions and how to apply tools that I talk about in the beginning of the workbook. The next thing is they may have wanted you to be good or perfect, but not real. You had to act happy, you had to be polite, you couldn't really make mistakes, you had to be grateful, or you even had to be quiet. Even when you were hurting, you had to just suck things up and deal with things. They may have told you this is the way things are. why can't you just be better, just be a good kid. There was always a high expectation on you about this good image that you had to uphold. They wanted you to not have emotions so that way they didn't have to deal with those emotions that they cannot handle. You really learn to suppress your emotions from avoiding being neglected, from avoiding being rejected, from avoiding being criticized, or to avoid being overwhelmed by their extreme reaction to your emotions. The next is that they lacked empathy. So it was really hard to get them to feel what you were feeling. They never really gave you space and sit with you in any type of emotion you were having. If you ever did go to them, they would minimize it. They would maybe try to immediately come up with a solution and resolve it and fix it. Or they would judge it, and they would judge it very harshly to the point where you felt bad for even feeling those feelings. And it's not because they're intentionally trying to be cruel, it's because they want to critically think the situation away. They want to maybe shame it away. They want to fix it away. They want it to be resolved. They don't know how to deal with emotional problems. You don't cognitively deal with emotional problems. Emotional problems need to be dealt with emotions. Our emotions are here for a purpose and a reason. We have to learn the tools of how to deal with our emotions. When we then deal with the emotions, then we can come up with more cognitive, practical solutions. But when it comes to emotional problems, we gotta deal with our emotions. The next one is they flipped in between being overly involved and checking out. So there were moments where they would be involved in what was going on with you, and they have been there to you. Maybe they've been supportive of you. Maybe they made you feel loved, or they made you feel like they could be someone you could go to. And then the next time, it was all of a sudden they were checked out. It was very push and pull. It was very inconsistent. They may have started doing the same things they always do, which is criticize you, try to fix it, try to get you to stop feeling whatever you were feeling. So then for you, it creates confusion. You get confused, like, why can they do this sometimes and not other times? And so it creates intermittent reinforcement, where it's like, I want that high of them making me feel good, so you may try harder to get them to give you the love that they've shown inconsistently, but it keeps making your heart break. You may also get hypervigilance, where you're always hyper aware of, like, okay, when they start stomping, I know that they're not going to be there for me. Or, oh, I know, like, you know, they're smiling, so maybe it's a good time for me to talk to them. You become so hyper vigilant, so hyper aware of all your surroundings, that it makes your nervous system go on high alert, and you will be aware of every noise or things you see. You become very in tune with people around you and what they may be feeling. And then this also creates that anxiety. Like I said, your nervous system is on high alert. You feel very stressed, and you may suffer with things like, you may jump very easily, you may get scared very easily, you may get nervous very easily, and you may struggle with a sense of feeling safe in your general day-to-day life. And when I say not feeling safe, I mean you may lack a trust in yourself, you may lack a trust in other people. That creates a lack of safety in the world. And then the next one is they relied on you emotionally. So this is where you may have been parentified, where you became the therapist, you may became the peacemaker, or you were the caretaker for their emotional outbursts. This is what they call emotional parentification. So they may have used you as a soundboard, where they would talk to you, ask you for advice. Maybe when they were having high emotions, they would ask you what to do, or try to find ways for you to soothe them. It would feel that the roles were reversed. So how this may impact you now as an adult is you may notice you struggle with avoidant attachment, and this is where you avoid intimate close relationships, and you also avoid your own feelings, or you avoid general situations that make you uncomfortable because you had a parent that shamed you or made you feel like you had to avoid your own emotions and avoid things that made you uncomfortable. You will struggle to name or trust your own feelings. Emotions now feel unsafe or invalid. You may second guess your intuition, your own gut instincts, or you may feel numb from constant criticism or badgering, or made to feel like emotions are weak or things that you shouldn't trust or have. And remember, like I had mentioned, our emotions are here to tell us something, there's importance in it, but you were made to feel like they weren't important, so now you don't trust them. And that hurts you in many ways. It hurts your ability to make good decisions for yourself and see what do you need and what feels right. 2, you over apologize and over explain. You've been trained to manage other people's emotions, and because of that, you now feel like anytime you do something that's wrong or bad or something that people may look down on, you now try to over explain and that's how you deal with the guilt of, I don't want them to be mad at me, so I'm gonna over explain things. This made you feel safe and accepted with your parents, and now you continue that on into adulthood. You feel guilty for setting boundaries, and this goes hand in hand with over explaining yourself. So you never felt like you could say no to your emotionally immature parent. You were taught that putting yourself first is selfish because you had a parent that was self-centered themselves, and they probably didn't like that about themselves, and they wanted you all to themselves, so then they pushed it onto you that you couldn't be selfish and it was wrong and bad. And so then now you really think it's wrong and bad to take care of yourself or to think of yourself. Next is you may attract emotionally unavailable partners. The next is you may attract emotionally unavailable partners. This is because it's what feels familiar. Repetition compulsion. We either marry/date people that are similar to our parents or the complete opposite, depending where we are in our healing. When we have unhealed wounds, we will continue the cycle because we are subconsciously seeking people that are similar to our parents and our wounds to get the validation and the acceptance that we never received through the person that reminds you of them. Even if it's painful, it still is familiar, and our brain always looks for familiarity. The next is you feel unseen even in close relationships. You may feel misunderstood. You may feel like you can't fully get deep with somebody else. This is because you didn't truly learn how to be vulnerable, and also you never really had a parent that mirrored you, which is really important in childhood, is having a parent that mirrors you. It's very validating, and you were always the one adapting. So you may actually be adapting in all of your relationships rather than feeling comfortable about who you are and being your authentic self, and so you never really feel 100% yourself or like people know you. You self-abandon, and this is because in your upbringing you were taught that you had to abandon yourself and who you are, so you had a parent. We do that naturally in childhood, where if we don't want to be abandoned or rejected, so we will rid parts of ourselves in order to stay connected to our parent, and so they will accept us and validate us. And so you continue that on into adulthood. You will dismiss and abandon your own needs. You will minimize and dismiss your own feelings, and you may catch yourself saying things like, it's no big deal, it's fine, I don't care, because that is what you were taught you had to do to survival. It's a survival instinct. So now that we've uncovered all of that, how do we heal from this? One, it's super important you validate your own experience. This can be hard, especially when you're in the very beginning stages of recognizing your parents have caused you harm. It can be very hard to admit, hey, my parents did these things, because a lot of us feel guilt, or we were guilted that we had a parent that put food on the table and we got all our physical needs met and they were there. And so we may feel bad of, I feel like I'm whiny, because you're taught that, you know, you're not allowed to have your emotions, and it's whiny to be upset with your parent, or it's wrong rather to be upset with your parent. But your parents were emotionally immature, and it has hurt you. Having emotionally immature parents can be tough because it is behind closed doors, and it's not something that many people may see. So it can feel invalidating that way, but I want to validate you and say your experience was, and in the pain you've had, is very validating. And in order to be able to heal, you have to first take the steps of acknowledging what has happened to you. The next I would say is take a journal, and you can write to your parents the pain that they have caused you. Write all your feelings. You may need to ask yourself some deeper questions about how you feel, and again, like I said, I have the emotional regulation book that can help you identify your feelings. I have a whole wheel about identifying feelings, and you need to dive deeper into your feelings and how things have affected you and where you think you're hurting. You have to learn how to feel your feelings. You have to learn how to identify your feelings. You have to learn how to feel your feelings. Like I had mentioned, feelings are important. I do have a lot of videos about the importance of feelings, and I'll leave it right here. Just know naming and expressing your emotions is healing. It is not selfish, it is not wrong, and it is not shameful. It is important for your own growth. for you as a human. The next is reparent yourself. So what that means is basically you have to attend to yourself, your inner child, the way that you never were attended to. You need to give yourself the love and care that you never received as a child. Give yourself that empathy, that patience, that grace, that love, and that space to have your emotions that you never really got. The next is set boundaries. You have to learn how to set boundaries with your parents. You have to learn how to set boundaries with the people around you. You can't continue to give from an empty cup, and you have to attend to yourself. You matter and your needs matter, and now is the time to start. If you continue doing this, you'll continue to be miserable, be resentful, and feel unsafe. Boundaries are guidelines to teach people how to treat us, and without them, then we get treated any sort of way that people see fit. You are not responsible for other people's feelings, and especially not your parents, and it's time to release them. Accept that your parents are the way they are. You may have to grieve over it, and just know you're not going to get that emotional depth that you had hoped you would get from them. You're never really going to have a deep relationship with them. They are stuck at that emotional immature age. And it's really important to get support from your loved ones. You may want to go to therapy, get coaching, whatever it is, get the support you need, because it's so important in your healing journey to have support. We need each other. I always talk about that on this channel, about the importance of support and being there for one another. So reach out to people that you know can support you during your growth. And it really will help you rewire your beliefs about love and support and care. Just know, as a child, you were never too needy. You were not wrong for having your emotions. You were just emotionally malnourished. And it's never too late to work on these emotional wounds. So what do you guys think? Leave it all in the comments below. And please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share with someone you think may need it. Until next time, thanks for watching. Bye, guys. Let me tell you a little something about kindness. So I have a rule that I don't kill really any bugs except for spiders. Sorry, I have arachnophobia. I'm very terrified of spiders. They don't deserve to be here, in my house at least. Stay outside, do your job. I know you're important, but not in my house. So I try to catch them and release them. Okay, so I went to go do that with this one bug, which I thought it was a flying ant. So I thought I caught it and I thought I released it. I didn't. A few minutes later, while I'm in my house, I feel something on my leg and I go to swat it and I feel a sting. It was not a flying ant. It was some type of wasp. ChatGPT told me some type of wasp stung me. I tried to save your life. That's why we don't be kind. Now, unfortunately, it's with Harambe. It's chatting up with Michael Jackson right now. It didn't make it. I'm sorry.